Hello, everyone. Please continue on with your lunch. We're just going to get started with the next part of our program. Good afternoon. I'm Karen Lincoln Michelle. I'm publisher and editor of Madison Magazine. So I, too, would like to welcome you to Best of Madison Business. You know, each year I look forward to this event, not only because we have honorees that are distinguished and contributed a lot to our community, but just to see friends and supporters of Madison Magazine and Morgan Murphy Media. So I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, and she'll talk about the Brian Howell Scholarship Award. Brennan Nardi is the Communications Director for Madison Community Foundation, and she is also a former editor of Madison Magazine, so we have a lot in common. Please welcome Brennan Nardi.
I always have to crank this sucker down. Good afternoon. It's so nice to be with you all here today. This is Claire. I'll introduce her in a moment. So thank you, Neil and Karen and Greg and Tom and Rachel and all the people at Madison Magazine and News 3 Now who make possible the Best of Madison Business. A great big congratulations to this year's winners. I have the privilege and pleasure of knowing all of you, and I've witnessed your immense contributions to business and civic life over the years. You're an impressive group, and Madison is so lucky to have you. Since 2006, proceeds from the Best of Madison Business have generously benefited the Brian Howell Life Sciences Scholarship Fund at Madison Community Foundation, where I now work, along with several of my colleagues who are here today, including our president, Bob Sorge. So thank you to Madison Magazine for your continued support and your commitment to local philanthropy. After Brian died in 2003, about a dozen of us came together and donated money to start this fund. Original founders included myself, Neil Heinen, Tom Still, who's the head of the Wisconsin Technology Council and former associate editor of the Wisconsin State Journal, Jim Burgess, who's the former publisher of the State Journal. I think I'm losing, oh, no, good. And Paul Fanlin, who is the current editor and publisher of the Cap Times. We established the fund to honor Brian's accomplished career as a journalist, as well as his commitment to teaching as a lecturer in the UW Department of Life Science Communications. Here's how Tom Still describes Brian's work and his legacy. Brian was one of the early contributors to the rise of the tech economy in Wisconsin through his work in journalism and teaching, and in consistently expressing a larger vision of Wisconsin's place in the 21st century economy. That group of us was also lucky enough to have the trust and guidance of Brian's wife, Pat, a generous donor to the fund and part of the scholarship committee that selects each year's recipient. Pat couldn't be here today, but Brian and Pat's eldest daughter, Katie Stadola, along with Katie's husband, Ryan, are here with us. Establishing the Brian Howell Life Sciences Scholarship Fund was our way of working through the grief of losing a colleague and a friend, and to ensure that Brian's legacy would live on in the students who receive the grants and the great work that they go on to do in life. The endowment fund is permanent, which means that it will support these students through an annual scholarship forever. I'm proud to announce this year's winner, Claire Holofsky, who perfectly embodies the spirit of this scholarship. Claire is currently pursuing a master's in life science communication, focusing her research on a variety of areas, including how public perceptions of emerging and controversial technologies shape science, policy, and law, as well as the best practices for science communication. If you'd like to remember Brian and support a student who shares Brian's passion and values, as Claire does, there are envelopes on your table, or you can donate online. I think it's behind me. And I'll let Claire share with you her exciting plans for her future.
Thank you. You'll have to forgive me. I'm used to speaking in front of an academic crowd, so there are quite a lot of eyes on me. Normally, they just all stare at their shoes. But after reading more about Mr. Howell and this award, I realized that we have many things in common. The biggest was our love for learning, whether that's in a classroom setting or simply learning from a friend or colleague. I've decided to take a more traditional path for my future and continuing piling on more academic debt. After my master's, I plan to take a short break and work within the industry before advancing onto a program that will allow me to complete my law degree as well as my doctorate degree in mass communication. I wish to be someone at the intersection of science and tech, law, and mass communications. I aim to be involved on national governmental boards that decipher technologies and educate the public on the developments in science and technology industries. This includes taking a lead role in policy creation surrounding emerging technologies and being a person who represents a public voice. In an era of rapid technology, it's important to think about how this public is affected by new technology and how we can best tailor laws to fit their needs. As I've already sold my soul to academia, I plan to stay heavily involved by doing research for the best practices of science communication at a university, as well as teaching the next generation of science communicators to be the best that they can be. This award is extremely helpful, and on a day like today, as I slide into my future, I want to extend a huge thank you to the Howell family and the Scholarship Selection Committee for this award, Mr. Howell for being an incredible role model, and to the Department of Life Sciences Communication at UW-Madison for providing me a strong educational foundation to be the best science communicator that I can be. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Brennan, and congratulations, Claire. One more round of applause for her. And now I'd like to introduce to you a video that was done to get the thoughts and background of each of our honorees. And this video was done by Jim Abraham, who's a videographer with Morgan Murphy Media. So please draw your attention to the screen. Thank you very much.
So Stemma to Biomarker Discovery is a biotech company I founded 12 years ago with Dr. Gabriela Cesar, who was then a professor at the University of Wisconsin. And basically we study metabolism. It's a complicated sounding word called metabolomics, but very simply put, we look at metabolism in cellular systems and also in humans. And we try to identify what's different about the metabolism of a person who has autism, for example, as compared to a typically developing one. That allows us to diagnose, and it also gives us insight into more precise treatment. We are at the cutting edge of biotechnology. We're employing some of our best and brightest people that come from the university here and grow up here so that they stay here and help to grow that economy.
So Troy and I co-founded Generator 7 years ago, And our mission is we want to be the best partner for a community to engage itself in creating wealth and jobs by investing into its best and brightest. And we do that through 4 products. We have a venture fund. We have operate that through our nationally ranked accelerator, which is a top 15 nationally ranked program. We also do it through our G-Beta program, which works with universities such as the University of Wisconsin-Madison via WARF, the computer science department, to create new companies and to help them get financing in the venture markets. We have a corporate group we run with over 40 corporations that participate. And lastly, we run a program for musicians and artists to help them build their careers and to help them pursue their arts and their passions at a local, regional, and national scale.
We took a risk just like the entrepreneurs that we invest in.
So the Progress Center for Black Women simply centers our work around Black women. Our goal is to create more Black women who are leaders, doers, and owners. So I'm most proud of, as far as my work is concerned in the Progress Center for Black Women, the opportunities for Black women and Black girls of all ages who walk into this space especially, and by the time they make it to the back of the room, they're in tears because they've never been in a space like this where the art on the wall reflects them, the energy of the room reflects them, and they feel like this space belongs to them.
The thing that I've really been proud of here at M3 is how we've been able to take the platform of risk, and you either transfer it with insurance or you manage it with skills and expertise, and really change the conversation with the type of talent that we've been able to bring onto our team, and then the impact we've been able to have on behalf of our customers. Whether it's me personally or if you spent time at M3, our company is incredibly excited about the Madison region. We think that this is a tremendous place to do business on a national and sometimes even global scale. The type of talent that's being attracted to Madison, as well as the ability for us now, because of technology, transportation, and the intellectual capital of the people that are here, to really get out of even Wisconsin and make an impact nationally in the various industries that either we or our customers participate in. It's never been better. And so we have an enormously bullish view of this economy and its place in the country, not just Wisconsin.
Our work here in Madison, I think, plays an important role in the biotech-led economy. And I think we also are making a big difference in the human condition, and hopefully that's starting here in Madison, Wisconsin. We actually have a site now that will be coming online here at Stemina. At the program, we're calling it Activate Madison. So you'll actually be able to come here to get blood drawn for our autism diagnostic test.
So our mission is to be the best vehicle for a community to invest in its best and brightest. And I think if we do that correctly, we will enter into a virtuous cycle, or what we call a flywheel effect, whereby companies and entrepreneurs will have successful outcomes. Can we create a robust community where an artist can flourish and think of themselves as an entrepreneur? Same with a musician. Our goal at Generator is to be a platform to see them as where they are as an entrepreneur and help them build a business or build a career around their art form.
Yeah, I mean, what you get the sense of with Madison is that tomorrow is going to be better than today, and we're all working towards this larger goal to build something larger than ourselves.
And I'd say within the accelerator genre in which we operate, we've been very fortunate, as Joe mentioned, to be nationally ranked for the last 4 years. And I think the thing that we take the most pride in, and you can almost, it's a little bit of a chip on our shoulder to prove that we can do this type of quality work right here in Madison, is that when you look at those rankings, it looks something like Silicon Valley, New York, Silicon Valley, LA, Silicon Valley, and then we're this odd duck in Madison and Milwaukee.
One of the things that we did to try to solve this is we opened an office at the Cambridge Innovation Center in Boston, and I pay $275 a month, that's $275 a month for 10 business days a quarter, and I go out and I work out there. I have clients there, and we have our general counsel is there, many of our board members are there. And what I found now is that when I go to see venture capitalists on the East Coast, instead of the who from where and you want to do what, I get, oh, a lot of our companies have started there. And we skip that whole your who from where and you want to do what, where I can imagine them wondering, how did this happen in Madison, Wisconsin, right? But in fact, we have great science here. We have very smart people here. And so this has offered us an opportunity to sort of have the beauty of being in Wisconsin, where all our people work, but at sort of a front gate on the East Coast, and that's making a difference.
So I am a fan of disrupting attitudes about Black women and Black girls, simply because I know that Black women have the potential to lead. And again, it doesn't have to be someone looking to be a CEO. It's simply a Black woman saying, I need to make more money. I need to get out of this toxic environment. I need this next promotion. And I know I deserve it. So I'm all about disrupting. Yeah, I'm okay with people calling me a troublemaker.
Our projections show that we'll grow from the dozen people we have here today in the next 3 years to 90 people. So we have some work to do. And those will include both scientists to work in the lab, as well as people who can speak the language of science and interface with doctors and families and clinicians to help them understand what the test is and how it can help their kids.
I hope that it becomes more clear to not only this community, but to other communities by that example, hopefully almost like a lighthouse, that there is so much more we can do to support the really talented people here, that they might not need to feel like they would have to leave in order to reach their full potential, but that, you know, by us as locals investing in locals and creating that context for success, we have every right to be as competitive as any other community in America.
I hope that Generator can play a role in creating a community dialogue and therefore being deliberate about what it means for we as a community, whether that's Madison or Wisconsin or even more broadly the Midwest. What does that mean for a community to be able to efficiently direct its resources into the next generation of entrepreneurs? And at the end of the day, I want Madison to be known as one of the top tech hubs, as one of the top culture hubs for artists and musicians, as one of the top destinations in general for people that want to experience a vibrant lifestyle.
If you were to lift the hood in our operation and spend time inside, you would hear us talking on a regular basis that we won't recognize this industry in 3 to 5 years. It'll be that different. And so then when I think about Madison, and I think about the future and how we're continuously working, whether it's through our chamber or through government, through nonprofits, through businesses, to build a better Madison. I am 100% convinced that our best days are ahead of us, and that when it comes to either the workforce or the work that's happening within our community, this town, this area is going to continue to provide an enormously bright example to the country, not just the state, but the country, on how to do life.
So I do want to say this community has been, I think it's just been willing to sort of like try it with me, if that makes sense. It's been willing to say, okay, we don't know, but we've been following, you've been with you for a while. Okay, we're gonna roll, we're gonna roll with you. Wherever I'm going, I feel like a good number of folks in this community have decided to come with me.
I love this group. One of the things I like doing every year is looking back on the honorees of the past 20-some years that we've been doing Best of Madison business. It's a remarkable group of people who have shaped this community into the place that we know and love. And I know a lot of them are in the room today. A lot of future honorees are in the room today, which is kind of cool. But one of them is Bob Trunzo, who is the president and CEO of CUNA Mutual, and CUNA Mutual is a co-sponsor of this event, and I'm very appreciative to Bob and CUNA Mutual for doing that, joining with Johnson Bank in sponsoring our event. So I'd like to bring up our honorees for this year. They've already been introduced, as you've seen. But together, I think they just form an interesting sort of snapshot of, what I'm calling who we are. Nationally known startup acceleration, cutting-edge bioscience, 21st century nationally and globally competitive financial services, and strategically inclusive innovation advocacy. That's who we are. And I think we're going to have kind of an interesting conversation as we mine these great minds to get their thoughts. The co-founders of Generator, Troy Vossler and Joe Kurgis, come on up, please. I'm going to give you your plaques here. You can put them by your side, and just take some seats here. Very graceful. co-founder and CEO of Stamina Biomarker Discovery, Beth Donnelly. M3 President and CEO Mike Victorson. And the founder, president, and CEO of the Progress Center for Black Women and the winner of the Brian Howell Excellence in Innovation Award, Sabrina Madison. Okay, again, a reminder that if you can get into slido.com, as questions pop up in your head, put them on there, and Karen will take a look at them, and we'll see how many we can get to. But I'm going to start, I'll start going down this way, Joe and Troy. As I said, the mix here is an interesting mix, and I'm just... In your work in particular, I think that that the Madison business mix is important to the work that you're doing. How are we doing in terms of the mix of businesses compared to other places that you visit?
Yeah, definitely. So I think Madison far and away punches above its weight class when it comes to, in particular, around tech entrepreneurship. And by that, I mean on a relative basis, on a per capita basis. And so at Generator, we really have the privilege today of operating some level of programming in 13 different cities across 7 states and now 2 countries. And yet, I'm biased, being in Madison, but I think Madison is, again, punching above its weight class. If we compare it to a Chicago, which has a multiple in terms of population, there's on an absolute value, there's more going on in Chicago. There's more startups, there's more venture capital, et cetera. But on a per capita basis, I'm pretty confident that Madison is higher. And I think that's something that is very apparent to us when we travel around the Midwest and throughout other parts of the country. And I really like Beth's comment in the video that increasingly when we visit these venture capitalists and entrepreneurs and innovative corporations on the coast, they are much more in tune with what's happening in Madison, and that's been great to see.
Yeah, I think when we go to these cities, we'll meet with a lot of the stakeholders in each community, and you see how parallel the infrastructure is between a Detroit and Indianapolis and a Minneapolis and a Madison. And so as you get that pattern recognition, I always try to gauge how excited are the institutions in that community to invest into their best and brightest, because I feel like it's the biggest predictor of what's going to follow. And the reverse of that is if we're not the most excited about investing into our next generation, why would we be upset if they leave for another community that is? And so I think that Madison has always struck me as a community that is particularly self-aware of the need to invest in that generation and particularly excited about investing into that next generation. And I think that, you know, if I had to guess as a result of that dynamic, Madison will be much, as we said in the video, much stronger tomorrow than it is today. And I think it makes us both excited about building our careers here.
I really enjoyed watching through all of the interviews that Jim Abraham did with you, and there was far more information in there than we could get. Some of these questions are going to follow up on some of the things that you talked to Jim about, which reminds me, Joe and Troy, you're both lawyers. What's up with that?
We're sorry.
Oh, that's right, Beth, you are. So, I mean, how did the path end up where it ended up?
For myself, I wanted to be a U.S. attorney, so I was a federal law clerk. I graduated law school just before the recession and ended my clerkship right in the recession. And so I was sort of transitioning off a career path that I thought I knew and looking for another one that I felt spoke to me in that same mission-driven way. And I think the idea of investing into the community, for whatever reason, really tripped my trigger. And because it's, you know, I was in Milwaukee, which is a completely different dynamic. It was a much easier point of entry to be new and inexperienced and just kind of passionate about the work. Yeah. That was a good enough pedigree to start doing this industry and that I was very fortunate in that dynamic, and I've been grateful every day that I get to do this.
Troy, you probably know this, but previous winners were from the UW Law and Entrepreneurship Center.
Yeah, so I came from that. So my joke was going to be there was just such a lack of litigation in Madison that Joe and I had to find different jobs. But the truth is that when I graduated from University of Wisconsin Law School, I joined this law and entrepreneurship clinic with Eric England and Ann Smith, and was fortunate to be one of the first supervising attorneys in that program. So I got to work with law students who were providing free legal services to startups, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and I really love kind of that intersection of law and entrepreneurship. And so Joe and I actually met by working on some mutual transactions together, so both on the startup and the investor side, and hit it off and started Generator then in 2012.
And when I think about the mix of resources, Beth, that we have here, in a different way, I'm thinking it probably influences the work of STEMA, and I'm thinking about autism in particular when we think of assets like the Weissman Center. And but to what degree does STEMA view those various component parts as a real important piece of the work?
Well, the ecosystem here is great in every way. I mean, we have great science. We have great scientists being educated to come out of the university. We have great business people. We have apparently a lot of lawyers that are now not practicing law. So we think it's really a great place to have a company, both from a human resource perspective, as well as just the general environment of Madison. I mean, it's a wonderful place to live, for sure.
Yeah. Can you talk about your son a little bit and how it influences your work? I thought that was really interesting.
Sure. So Jack is 22. He's actually a senior at Whitewater through the office with students for students with disabilities. And he's actually doing pretty well. He's pretty high functioning, but he has autism. And our journey in that was kind of an unusual one, or maybe not as unusual as you'd like to think, in that we knew from early on that he had developmental delays. And he was in the early childhood program in Middleton, starting at age 3, and yet he wasn't diagnosed until he was 7. And when they told us that he had pervasive developmental delays not otherwise specified, they never used the word autism. And that's actually a form of autism, abbreviated PDD-NOS. And it actually wasn't until we started doing the work at Stemina in 2014 that I was reading a scientific paper, and it said forms of autism, and it said autism, Asperger's, and PDD-NOS. And by that time, we had already said to educators and physicians and things, do we think we should have him tested for autism? He seems to have these, symptoms other than significant learning disabilities. And I think they were probably like, lady, he has autism. But I didn't really know that. And we just continued with all the things that we would do, which were, an IEP at school, and speech language, and physical therapy, and so on. But when he went to go to college, and we were interviewing schools that had learning disabled programs, including Edgewood, Whitewater, and Oshkosh, as soon as I would say his diagnosis is PDD-NOS, they'd say, oh, well, we'll get you connected with the autism coordinator. And so it's been an interesting journey, because as a lawyer and an MBA holder, and I do have a master's in science, but I was actually in the pairing of Gabby and I, supposed to be business, and she was supposed to be science. It's almost as if the universe grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and said, you're going to go work on a problem, you have no idea why, but you're going to do something that's going to make a difference, because kids shouldn't be diagnosed at 7 or 14. They should be, 18 months, which is when we can do the test. And before I leave this, I just have to give kudos to my colleague here at M3 and many of the team members that are here from M3. They've had Jack as a summer intern with support from DVR the last 2 summers, and he has grown so exponentially. And I would say that as the parent of a differently abled child, I really understand the definition of differently abled, and thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Quick thing before Neil gets it back. Her son's awesome, and he's done a terrific job, Mr. Victorson. I'm not going to go by Jack anymore. I'm John.
That's true.
I love the idea of the universe grabbing you all by the scruff of your neck. I think that might be a common theme here. You and Jim got into a conversation, Mike, about millennials that I thought was kind of interesting, and you said you were bullish on millennials. So I'm thinking about M3, and I'm thinking about the work you do, and that seems like a provocative view of a maligned generation.
Well, I don't have a choice. No, I mean, Sincerely, I am bullish on millennials, and that's coming from somebody with an opinion who's not a lawyer, an MBA, a master's, a PhD. Man, you get up on a panel like this and you feel dumb quick. The thing that I've really enjoyed about the changes in the workforce and the changes in what's happening generationally in our town is that we are doing things differently and thinking about things in new ways unlike we ever have, and at a pace like we never have. What I've enjoyed most about millennials in our office is that when we've embraced them and asked them about what's next and what can you do and how should we approach a new problem, they haven't shrunk away. They have not at all defined the stereotype that often follows them. And so if you look at how we do business today versus, as an example, how we did business 5 years ago, it's completely different. And I wish I could say it was the genius of our management team walking out of a conference room with the smoke billowing out, think Mel Brooks, History of the World. But it's not. It's in so many ways the change of our workforce and how much differently they're causing us to think.
Yeah. So if I bring back that old canard, Sabrina, if you build it, they will come, and think about the Progress Center for Black Women, your pride in that space and into the sort of inclusivity that's there was pretty remarkable. Have they been coming?
They have been coming. They stop me in strange street corners and tell me when they're coming. So they have been coming. And I want to be honest with you, I want to see everyone in this room come within the next 30 days. So that's my challenge to each of you. But the city has been coming. Predominantly Black women are coming, but all kinds of folks come to the space. And I think because it sort of fills them up, where a city like Madison can sort of, as a Black woman, sort of take a lot from you and you have to seek it elsewhere. So I think where the goal was to sort of have Black women and Black families especially be filled up in a space, that is happening.
I thought it was interesting. You were. I think Jim asked you the question about who was coming to some of your events. You ended up talking about a white guy who wanted to open a surfboard shop.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone is in here.
The Progress Center for Black Women doesn't necessarily lead me to.
Yeah. So that's why I'm telling you, all got to come because you're all going to get something from it. But I don't know if anyone is in here from AmFam, but my son works for American Family Insurance. So thanks for employing my kid if you're here. But long story short, AmFam was one of the sponsors who sent their employees to the conference last year. And we had a gentleman who I think ended up being one of my son's first manager there. He ended up coming to the conference for 2 days. We were outside on a break, and he tells me how much he's gotten from this conference targeting Black women. Anybody's welcome to come, but it targets black women. It centers Black women. But he was so inspired, he started talking about his old dreams about opening up some sort of surfboard shop or whatever because of what he had got at the conference. Yeah. So I'm telling you, you guys got 30 days to get to the space.
And you've got some plans for a permanent space, right?
Yes. Yep. So my big goal is we're in our present space for about 2 years with the option to lease for a third. Next, or actually another week or two, I meet with Moving Out and Operation Fresh Start to start developing plans to build out our permanent space. So my goal is to find our permanent home in the city of Madison, to also add on options for affordable housing, home ownership. In our physical space will include retail space, a library, a restaurant-grade kitchen, community space, so you guys can come in and see young people like Lauren over here put on full productions. So it will be the spot to be.
This panel may very well prove your point here, Mike, but you talked about Midwest Nice. And although you talked about it in the reference of maybe getting in the way of recognizing our potential and promise, talk about Midwest Nice.
I think sometimes we can be overly deferential, especially when it comes to chasing down our dreams. And this can play out in many different forms, depending on what you're chasing or what type of entrepreneur you are, what type of business you're trying to build. And when you were asking the generator guys about, how do you see us competing and fitting in nationally, let's say, one of the things that I see happen is the top 25 people in our space are all doing business in this state. And they're all chasing the companies that we want to have as clients. And I think the reason is because of the talent and the innovation and the world-class products that they're building. And sometimes when we then go we have to be pushed potentially outside of our own comfort zones to talk about how we belong in New York, California, Austin, Denver, fill in the blank. And funny thing is, Neil, when we do go and we do lace them up, we do all right. And so that's really optimistic for me in Madison, for sure.
You get a rise out of Midwest Nice?
Well, yeah, I do. Simply because sometimes we don't have the conversations that we need to be having in open spaces, and we need to allow ourselves to be uncomfortable and just go ahead and get it out. Like, I walked around and said, oh, I got the most diverse tables here at the space. But I also said, what can I do to help ensure that this space is even more diverse next year? So when we talk about Midwest Nice, I talked about my earrings being on clearance. That's Midwest Nice. But let's talk about Midwest Nice in a way that, you know, what's not nice. So when we talk about all that's going really well in Madison, my mind immediately goes to what's in the decline, how I'm losing friends because there's not a lot of room for growth or improvement or mentorship in the Black community here. So, you know, I love living here. It's a beautiful place. I mean, the Edgewater, yes. So, but I also want to see me here multiplied. Yeah.
So, So I don't think it's a big leap from there, Joe and Troy, to your vision for musicians and artists as part of the entrepreneurial scene. To me, that really broadens the image of who an entrepreneur is.
Yeah, when we going to this point, I think you're speaking about, how do we engage audiences that might not necessarily be at a very nice lunch at the Edgewater? And how much more does that broader audience engaging make us more competitive and more inclusive and more successful? And so we were looking for a way in Generator that how do we take our core assets of community and mentorship and network and experience and go beyond, you know, the kind of, I'd say the most common profile of who people think we invest in, which is a 25-year-old like Matt Howard maybe. So what we were looking to do is take all those core assets and do it in a way that was both different and better. You know, different from everyone else that we saw across the country, and could really improve our mission of serving the community. So we thought about how the act of creating a startup, of creating a new product, it's very almost artistic in that you're imagining something in your mind that you want to put out and create the world to make it better, something that could help kids with autism, right? So it's a very artistic-like act, and so it naturally seemed like a good step to offer those community mentorship network experience to artists and musicians. So we're to my knowledge, the only accelerator, I believe the only ranked accelerator to go beyond just serving startups and go into serving musicians and artists. Notably, the first cohort we ran was in Milwaukee. 60% of the applicants were from the 3 poor zip codes. And what I don't think I anticipated was how quickly we would find ourselves, you know, dealing with an applicant who didn't have a bus ride to apply. And so that was, I think, eye-opening for us. On the other hand, we do these workshops. We get 400 kids who show up on a Saturday, and I describe the photo from those events. If you go on our Instagram on Generator, it's the only social media push you'll ever hear me make. You'll see this photo of a crowd, and I describe it as a crowd we've all been waiting to see. It's this room full of young people that reflect every diversity, and they're all coming because of their shared passion around art and community. And so it's something that we feel like we've touched a vein on, and that has been some of the most rewarding professional work of our career. And we'd like to do a lot more of it. We believe it really serves our core mission of uplifting our community. In other words, as these artists succeed and as these musicians succeed, our community succeeds as well. As a community strategy, do we have a deliberate model for how a community like Madison is going to compete against a city like Austin, where they think about culture as a part of their business model? And so how do we work that thinking into how it is that we attract those top people, and how do we work that thinking into how we make our community more inclusive?
Yes. So as soon as you said music, I first want to shout out Generator because you guys have invested in my work, and Maggie, I think I saw Maggie here somewhere, but she's really, really, really dope. So I just got to shout her out. But when you're talking about music, the Progress Center is definitely someone you'd want to be connecting with, because here we have Keon Hudson sitting over here, who's definitely someone who's traveling the country putting on shows and delivering his own music and apparel. So I would love to figure out how do we create connections so you guys know about Keon and Keon knows about Generator. You know.
Let's do it.
So
I should point out, so those programs, just to be clear,
Yeah.
we started in Milwaukee
Yeah.
just this past summer. We want to bring them to Madison. And so in addition to visiting Sabrina's Center, we hope that people in the audience are interested in bringing these programs to Madison, and I love that idea of collaboration.
The reason, Sabrina, that we wanted you to have the Brian Howell Excellence in Innovation Award is because I assume that a lot of the people who stop you on the street are artists.
Yeah,
Are musicians,
everybody.
are people who are wanting to start small businesses that may not fit the stereotype of the entrepreneur,
Yep.
and that you have been innovative enough to say to them, I see the potential in you.
Yep, that happens all the time. Like right now, we have Letitia McDuffie, who we pleasantly call the cookie lady. And so her cookies are like, you guys ever addicted to cookies? You know they're never going to make it home. That's her cookies. So it's like, how do I help her get into a space such as like the feed kitchen? So, we work on things behind closed doors or whatever, but we try to figure out, how can we get her in more spaces? How can we get her more connected? Because maybe she's not the traditional entrepreneur who's coming into your spaces, but how do you create a space for her to thrive in your ecosystem? That's my biggest concern, so.
Kind of as strange as it might seem, Beth, all of a sudden, biotech seems kind of old school innovation these days. When we think about how much broadly we are talking about the knowledge economy, the innovation economy, but to what degree does this broader thinking support a company like Stemina?
Yeah, it is interesting because biotech is sort of passé now in Madison. We've got the tech-led economy, which is we really mean more IT focused, more computer science, more apps, more programmers. And Epic is responsible
and
for
it
a
is
lot of
not
it.
passé, right?
No.
The future is still limitless for biotech.
Absolutely. And actually, when you say biotech, we incorporate a lot of that. A huge amount of what we do is big data, machine learning, analytics, trying to understand enormous data sets that are generated by our instruments. We also rely on things like social media. We're tweeting and we're Instagramming and we're Facebooking. I don't do it, but others in my organization do, because where do parents go when they learn that they have a diagnosis of autism? They go to the internet and they want to know, where can they get tested? How can they, I'm worried about my son. I don't want him to be 7. Is there a test that I can take? What do I do if I find out that he has a diagnosis? So it's all kind of integrated, even though really what we do is life sciences in its core.
I'm thinking about technology and thinking how well Slido.com is working right now. There are people who are don't necessarily need to go to their phones to ask questions. Mike, you talked about the responsibility of leadership, and I'd like you to broaden that a little bit.
Yeah, so maybe taking a page out of Sabrina's book and not being Midwest nice, our numbers in the inclusive and diversity field aren't good. And it's something that disappoints us, and it's something in our industry that we've struggled to, as a network of black professionals came to spend time with us, create a safe enough place for people to apply. And those were the words that people used. And it really convicted me, and I found myself in an onboarding session shortly thereafterward, and Simone Russell had joined us, and she's of color, and she was sitting in a room with colleagues that were all white, and I praised her bravery for joining our company. And I could see the look on some of her new colleagues' face. They kind of looked at me like you're looking at me right now. And sincerely, I said, so let me see if you can understand what Simone just did. We have 275 employees and 5 people of color. Now I want you to reverse that. We have 270 people of color, and we have 5 people who are Caucasian. Would you join the company? And so, as I let them ponder that, and as I let them think about that space, and would that be safe for them, it really, I think, convicts me, and it made me want to share that story, because I think the responsibility we have as leaders in a town as awesome as Madison is we can't be afraid to talk about it. We can't be afraid to have a graduate of the Justified Anger program at M3. We can't be afraid for the CEO to take the Black History class that Alex G is putting on, which I'm doing. We can't be afraid to talk openly, especially with a generation you asked about, millennials, before, so that we can think differently about who we are and how we do it. And when it happens that way, the dream for a better Madison is, and I've heard the same stories, that when you have someone of color coming up as a professional, they don't think, well, if I really want this to go good for me or well, I got to move to Atlanta or DC or Chicago or somewhere else. That they see Madison as a place that they can build their dreams just like somebody that might look like me. And the last piece I've learned about leadership that's so hard when you think about an inclusive culture, and it's more than just African Americans, but we're just talking about that right now. A lot of times people that look like me, people have to ask in the back of their mind, is he an ally or not? You know, he's a middle-aged white guy without a degree in the insurance risk business. Doesn't always fit the profile of potentially an ally. Imagine a day in our community when someone that looks like you can look at someone like me and not even have to wonder that. Now, that's a better Madison. And now, are we going to struggle? Are we going to slip up? Are we going to say the wrong thing? Are we going to have to hug each other and hug it out and keep working? Without a doubt. No question about it. But I think that's when you think about leadership in our businesses, that's what connects us to something bigger than our product or our profit or our standing in our industry. So thanks for letting me talk about leadership.
Well, I want to, end by giving each of you a chance to talk to this audience, to talk to the people who are here who want to know what you've learned. You know, what's your best advice? What's your perspective on the city right now? Before we do that, Troy, though, this reminds me of something you said, that Madison's running the race, but everyone's running the race. So I mean, that's the competitive world that we're in. You know, that's the environment that we're operating in, and so the question is, how do we accelerate the pace? Well, how do we?
Well, for us, I think everyone's on the same treadmill, right? Madison's against Milwaukee, against Minneapolis, against Chicago, against Silicon Valley, against New York. The reality is everyone is on this treadmill. Everyone's running the race. And I think what we need to do is just get better stamina, meaning it's never going to get easier. You know, whether it's issues of social justice or economic development, it's never going to get easier. And we need to recognize that everyone is running that race. And I think the jet fuel that we need, specific to Generator, is this concept of locals investing in locals. Whether that's time, whether that's money, whether that's mentorship, et cetera. We need to make sure that if we don't believe in ourselves, to quote Joe, who's going to believe in us even more, right? And so there's this belief that, there's plenty of venture capital in Silicon Valley, and if only we can import that. That's certainly a strategy, but there's also a lot of capital and a lot of smarts and a lot of intelligence and a lot of network right here in Madison and throughout Wisconsin. And I think if we could perhaps reorient that, and with an acknowledgement that it's perhaps better to invest in a startup here in Madison than a strip mall in Indiana, even if that latter investment made you 1 cent more, I think that's a new concept of fiduciary duty that perhaps we should all take to heart.
So, no need to overthink this, Joe. And it's not so much, maybe what you've learned, but what you're learning. But, what would you say to this audience about your experiences?
I think it's how my personal experience maybe translates to a Madison business community. When we started Generator, I didn't know we'd go 6 months. And I don't think we take anything for granted as a result. It still feels as vulnerable as it did then at that moment in some respects. And so my joke is that when we make these $20,000 checks to young people and expect them to create a $50 million company, that's what it's like to be crazy but not self-aware. I think the expectation that maybe I've learned from it for myself and for others is that leaders matter and none of it's for granted. And so how it is that we commit ourselves to making this community better is the answer to the question. And so I think it is something that I've realized the more we've done it, that's a personal commitment for Troy and me and our company and everyone on our team and our founders and everyone we get to work with. And that's something we try to have our mission reflect to everyone we engage. And the more I wish I saw it around the community. And the more I appreciate people who take the extra mile to do it in the community, because you see how much of a difference it makes for all the things we get to enjoy in our life.
So what's the Vossler take on that?
Well, first, I'm bullish on millennials too. So thanks, Mike. But I would just echo this concept of nothing gives us more pride than investing in a nascent entrepreneur and providing them with the network and experience and relationships and capital to help them build a company. And Joe mentioned Matt Howard, the founder of Each Street, who's a past award recipient himself. And to think that someone when he was in undergrad, participating in the business plan competition at the UW-Madison School of Business, to then go on to have a company here in Madison which employs more than 1,000 W-2 employees is a tremendous thing. And so for us, it's all about how can we have the courage of our conviction to look at a seed or a small sapling and know that some of those will grow into giant redwoods.
Beth, Wharf and Stamina. It's hard to imagine Madison without Wharf and Stamina.
Yeah, I don't even know that I have like a great piece of wisdom other than to say that every step along the way you learn skills you add to your network by both being part of the community, volunteering and doing things and being involved. And so I think those are really important components, and in turn, they bring richness to the community because you're connected and you know people, you're volunteering, you're helping. Wharf is obviously an important component to our ecosystem. I'd love to see them get a little more involved in actually our community. So shout out to them if anyone is here. And I guess the last piece of information that I think is so important is perseverance. You have to put one foot in front of the other every single day and try to figure it out. And sometimes it's complicated and discouraging, and sometimes you have great days and you have breakthroughs and things are wonderful. I think if we continue to try to work together to make this a better community with those values in mind, one foot in front of the other, inclusiveness, we'll get there. It's a great place to live, but I take Sabrina's point. I've lived here since I was 6, and we've seen some change in our community, and not all of it good. And I think we need to work together and be able to have those more difficult conversations to try to make it a better place for everybody.
We were talking about how important it is, how enjoyable it is, Mike, to reflect a little bit. On reflection, what would you say?
Yeah, the only couple of things that are coming to my mind are, one, when I have someone like Sabrina on my left, it causes you to think about what inspires you and what gets you excited. Because I think we can all get caught, regardless of what generation we're in, when we're a part of the grind, that it can slow you down and dull your dreams. And one of the things that I've learned, whether it's leading something socially, philanthropically, with government, or with your business, finding those things that inspire you and let it animate you. And then the second piece is having enough people around you, because we're all broken, we're all not perfect, we all have doubts, we all have scar tissue. Having the people around you that will push enough to allow you to say, why not? And I'm looking at my friends at the CUNY Mutual Group, and I hope they're okay with me saying this. I didn't consult a lawyer. But we had an opportunity to enter a business relationship and a partnership with them 2 years ago. And after we got the deal and we were going to move forward, I got in the car with one of my colleagues and I said, uh-oh, you think we can do it? And we were able to do it, and we worked with them, and we answered that question, why not? And they've made us better, and I think in a small way, even though they're a much bigger company, I think we've helped make them better. And that's the kind of thing that if we allow ourselves in all of our junk with the people that are around us to keep pushing us out of that zone, we'll continue to be better and better leaders.
So Sabrina, what instantly comes to mind for this audience is, wait until they see what's next.
Yeah.
But tell them what you think they should know about your work right now.
Yeah, I want to, in answering that, I want to go back to your initial conversation because I've been waiting on it, Neil, sorry. But the
This
one
is the
about
time.
and I was like, is he married? Because he's paying for drinks for me later because you've been talking about me all day. So I just want to get that out. But
My wife's right over there.
Shout out to your wife. But people who know me well know I'm like, look, rain check on drinks on you. I just want to go back to say that when we talk about leadership, we also need to talk about action, because whenever I got to meet with a white guy, I'm always like, oh my God, is he gonna meeting me to death? Is he gonna bro me to death? Or am I gonna be ready to curse? Call my son, have to curse about him later on. So I don't ask about allyship to myself. I ask, am I gonna have to go off after the fact? Because sometimes it can be tiring. Sometimes you get in meetings, like Madison has this history of meeting black folks to death. And so it's just like, make a decision. Do something. Act on something. So I think where you're talking about going to do the classes that justify anger, that's great. And I think more folks should definitely be doing that. But you also, I think, for me, what's next is how do I get people to take the next step, to act, to do something? Because I'm not coming to any more forums. I'm not coming to any more discussion groups. No, I'm done. Do not invite me to any of those that you're hosting. I'm not going to be on the panel. I've already declined the invitation. So what I want to say to you is that I'm so serious, y'all. If you look at my inbox, I'm done. I'm over it. It is done. So, but what I want to say to you is, like, for my son is right there, who's a software developer at AmFam. He has some sheets there, and it tells you about what's coming up at the Progress Center, how you can invest, how you can partner with. So I truly do expect that everyone in here, someone from your company is going to drop off your business card there, and then I'm going to hit you up, and I'm going to say, this is what the Progress Center is up to next. This is how you can partner with us to really, truly meet your equity and inclusion and diversity goals. Because just having fancy strategic goals on your website ain't hitting it. And I'm losing my friends because it ain't hitting it. So I need to really work with you. I'm more interested in that. That's what I'm interested in. I don't want to have 20 meetings with you. I don't want to come and take a tour of your space. I want you to come to the Progress Center. I want you to sit down with me, and then I'm going to say, I know a Letitia. I know a Keon. I know this person. I really want you to partner with me and take part. Like Sharon and I from UW Extension just put together a full-bodied curriculum where we partner with employers to help move some of these goals forward, especially if you have Black women in your companies. So that's what for me, it's about do something. Don't meaty me to death. Don't bro me to death. Just do something. Do something. Because we've had enough conversations. Hopefully I answered the question.
You answered the question and you raised the question. And for me, it's the five of you. It's your four companies. When I think of Madison business in 2020, this is the foundation of it, which sounds pretty good to me. So thank you for taking the time to do this. Congratulations. I got one more piece of business to take care of here. So if you can just sit tight there for just a second. There is at your tables a subscription offer for all attendees. As I said, I would love it if you would subscribe to Madison Magazine. There's a special offer there. Please take a look at it. My thanks again to Johnson Bank, our partners in this for as long as we've done it, to CUNA Mutual Group, our co-sponsor. And again, thank you all very much for taking the time and putting the effort into to come here today. And we will see you next year. Karen.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who asked questions on Slido. There were 14. I don't know how we can, engage our panelists at a later time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I kept looking over at you. I thought you were going to start talking to me, but you know me. If I get going talking, I'm not going to stop. See you next year, everybody. Thank you.